Hi, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Today is the second segment in my How to Get Started Homeschooling series. And today's segment is going to be a little bit more fun than last week's when we just learned about legalities. Today we're going to be learning about deschooling. In case you don't know what deschooling is just living every day as if it were Saturday or a summer vacation. And deschooling is really important for kids who either have been pulled out of school or for kids who have been in a pretty rigidly structured homeschool and you're trying to do a little bit more of a relaxed method instead. So what you basically do is you just allow your kids to just do whatever they would normally do on a Saturday. You don't give them any assignments. You don't expect any sort of learning from them. You just let them live out their lives and see what they're interested in. One thing when kids are in school, they get really used to the teachers telling them what it is that they're supposed to learn all the time. And that's not really a mindset that you want them to have, because when they're grown up and out in the quote real world, you don't really have people telling you what it is that you need to know all the time. A lot of times there are things that you need to find out, and you need to do that on your own, and you need to take the initiative yourself. Deschooling helps them get used to that. It helps them to find their interests and to learn how to approach doing them in a way that suits them best. It also gives them time to relax. A lot of times they're a bit stressed out from being in school all the time. And some of them might sit and watch TV for a while. Some of them might draw. Some of them might do a lot of gaming. But what it is that you're trying to accomplish is you're trying to get your child used to being at home with you. And you know what? Deschooling is great even for you as the parent. Parents, at least most parents, grew up in a traditional school setting. So we've grown accustomed to thinking that school, or I should say learning, can only happen in a certain way, which is textbooks with the teacher standing at the front of the class, either lecturing or giving some kind of PowerPoint presentation. And you know what? That's really not the only way to learn. And for most kids, it's not the best way to learn at all. The only reason that schools do things that way is because they've got classrooms of like 30 kids and they can't accommodate every single individual child's learning style. So it kind of becomes an assembly line learning. You know, they just teach everybody out of the same textbook, to give them the same lessons, move them on to the next class, move them on to the next year, and there's no sort of tailoring it to fit each child's needs, which is why there are so many kids who struggle in school nowadays. So as a parent, you really need to get yourself out of the mindset of thinking, my child is not doing their history textbook, but they're only reading historical fiction on Titanic, so they should probably do a textbook instead. No, you know what? If they're reading historical fiction, that is great. And that's one thing that you've got to get used to, is you've got to get used to seeing learning in everything. And you know what? There really is learning in everything. And I read somewhere that even if your child is just sitting there petting the cat, you can bet that the wheels are turning in their head. And on the rare occasion that they're not, maybe it's just a moment of peace that they do really need, because I'm sure you know what it's like to have thoughts racing through your head all the time and you don't really get any downtime. Another thing that deschooling does for you as the parent is it gives you the opportunity to observe your child. Watch and see what they're interested in. See how they like to do things. See how they approach things, and try to figure out what their learning styles are. Speaking of learning styles, another thing you should be doing during this time as the parent is read up on homeschooling. Don't just try to jump into it without ever having researched it, because that is too often when you go to the school mode by default, because that's all that you know. So you really want to make sure that you read up on homeschooling, read up on how learning really happens. I highly suggest you read anything by John Holt or John Taylor Gatto. Their books completely changed the way I look at learning. They changed the way I look at public education. I just see everything through new lenses now, and it's just amazing. So yes, definitely read some of their books. I also suggest you read some homeschooling blogs, homeschooling books, and try not to find blogs where the families are very, very school-like in how they're approaching learning. It can kind of undo everything that you've done in your deschooling by trying to get out of that mindset. If you see another family who's trying to imitate school, you really want to try not to do that. And you know what? It might end up suiting your family, but when you're in the deschooling process, at least give yourself the opportunity to distance yourself from that type of learning. Another thing for parents with deschooling, I know you probably thought that deschooling was all about the kids, but it's not. A lot of it is for the parents because it gives you the opportunity, just like you're watching your child to see how they like to learn, you need to get to know how you like to do things. Because if you pick everything, how should I say this? If you pick your entire curriculum based only on your child's interests and how they like to learn without taking yourself into account, you might end up running into trouble because even adults have, we have preferences for how we like to learn. I like to do hands-on activities with the kids, and I like to have some sort of direction in what they're doing. I did try unschooling, and one of the reasons that it didn't work for me is because I really like to know that I'm at least in control of things. And please forgive the shaky camera. My cat is walking around, bumping into it. What else is there? So what should your child do during this time? Anything they want. Absolutely anything. Let them watch TV. Let them play games. Let them play at the creek, outside. Read all day long if they want to. Color, draw, take naps, pet the cat, anything. Just let them do whatever they want during this time. And like I said, what you should be doing at this time is you should be trying to watch your kids and try to start finding value in what they do. Because like I said, everything that they do if it has value to them, then it's important. Let them do it and start figuring out how it is that you're going to incorporate those things into your home learning atmosphere. So this deschooling process can take any length of time that you need it to. I recommend that you do it for at least a few weeks. I know that there are some people who will say that you should deschool I believe it's 1 month for every year that they're in school. But if you're, for example, first starting to homeschool when your child is in high school, I think that a year of deschooling might be a bit much for some people. If you're comfortable with that, great. But I would at least recommend that you do a few weeks of deschooling. Try to get yourself out of the schoolish mindset, get used to seeing how your child learns, and then once you do start actually homeschooling, ease into it. Don't just jump into it right away. You want to ease into it a little bit at a time so that not only can your child get used to it, but you can too. So next week's segment, I'm going to talk about why you shouldn't buy your homeschool curriculum just yet. I'll see you then.